Greetings and good afternoon. Welcome. So, I'm going to start a finance series. It's going to be very superficial, um, nothing in depth. For that, you need a financial advisor, and I'm not one. Just years of experience and stuff that I've learned along the way. Um, so, to start this first chat here we're having, we'll just call it Finance 101. Um, just kind of an overall um, view, as I said, um, just to help you kind of manage your money better. Um, I'm not saying this would be for an investor aspiring or otherwise, but maybe as the first step on a journey, maybe this might help you. Um, but if you're just wanting to learn about the finances and kind of the overall what it means, this hopefully will give you a foundation that each one of these videos might give you a stepping stone to understanding everything at a larger level. As I said, if you really want to drill down into this, I'd recommend going to a financial advisor, investment counselor, and in some cases even somebody involved with your taxes. Not CPA, but again, CPA, tax advisor, any of those people that can help you delve a little bit better and learn how to manage your money better. So this first area will be kind of a basic of what finance is, why it matters, and maybe some key principles to keep in mind. So, first, what is finance? Finance, generally speaking, is managing money. The study and management of money. Could involve savings, investing, budgeting, and planning, long and short-term planning if you're focused on buying a car or buying a house or buying a new computer or preparing for starting a family, budgeting all that into your life, and figuring out how to do that. Giving yourself the time, the energy, the expertise to get to that point and understanding what each of those means from a financial perspective. So it isn't just for business. This isn't just for the wealthy. It's for literally everyone living on this planet. Obviously, different countries, different rules, different abilities, different capabilities, different access. So while my videos are typically going to be oriented toward U.S. based people, hopefully I can give a general enough view that maybe people in other areas of the world can gain a little bit of understanding of what financing means, because it does affect every day of your life and everybody's lives. Understanding budgeting your monthly expenses. If your country even has the capabilities, planning for a retirement. Some people are just going to work until they die, and that's just the way life is. But hopefully you can leave yourself in your later years and your family a generational wealth, because that will overall, your wealth will play a critical role in your later years and your family's lives later on. I'd say three general key areas for finance that we're going to cover. again, very superficial, is your personal finance, corporate finance, and public finance. So personal finance is managing your individual income, your family's income. As I mentioned earlier, budgeting, saving, investing, and planning for retirement. Businesses, if you get in the corporate world or if you start a business of some sort, how to, as a business, handle your money. And again, this same thing with your personal finance is budgeting, saving, investing. But you also add into that raising capital, having somebody else invest in your business, having the ability to buy and sell goods and services, getting your customers in, managing your investments, and making financial decisions. And some of those are going to be very, very difficult. It's going to come a point, if you have a growing business, do you hire additional people, or do you, as the owner, still take responsibility and do those jobs? And there's going to be a time where you're going to pay somebody money to do a job that you're better at, but the return on investment is going to be better because your time is more valuable, and you're going to be able to turn your time into a better rate of return on your investment. Yes, it may take somebody 8 hours to do what you could do in 4 hours or even 2 hours, but that additional time, you know how to grow your business, and that's what your focus is going to be as a business owner. And then on to public finance, and this is governments, how they collect and spend money, taxation, public spending, and the popular thing in the news is our national debt here in the U.S., where just on interest alone, we're, I think, nearly $2 trillion a year just in interest. This sounds like almost imaginary numbers, but kind of a general view on how that's done. And again, I'm not going to delve into this topic, at least not here, maybe later on. I'm not going to delve into it too deep, but that's just kind of the three branches that, from an umbrella 10,000 foot view, that you have in finances. So the next thing you might be asking, depending on your place in life, is why is finance as a topic, as a study, why is it important? Why is this knowledge of finances important? Well, finances, being that it is the study and understanding of managing money, well, let's face it, the more money you have and the better you can manage it, the better financial freedom you can have. You can afford to even have a family, move your family to a larger house. Maybe if you're a farmer, have a larger crop, have more people working for you. That way you have a larger crop. And being able to create jobs to help others throughout the world. So it having that financial knowledge gives you better control over your future, your family's future, and not just in the short term. If you get really good at it, as I was mentioned earlier, what's called generational wealth. And not just you and your kids, but your grandkids, your great-grandkids. You could individually be creating a system that allows your family to grow and prosper well beyond your years. Proper financial knowledge can help you avoid debt or possibly understand how to use debt to grow your own personal wealth or grow your business. You can make better financial decisions. Is it better to buy from a financial perspective, not an emotional? And this is where finances really gets to a lot of people, is the emotional decision. Is it emotionally better to buy this nice 2-story, 4-bedroom home, or would it be better to buy a single-story, 2-bedroom home? Is it going to be crowded depending on the size of your family? Of course it is. But what is the best financially speaking? That brand new car, brand new motorcycle, or something that's a little older? If you'll notice, a lot of the really multi-million billionaires, they're driving around in old beaters. Warren Buffett, I think he's driving in like a 94 Accord. And Sam Walton, it was the creator of Walmart, he always had an old pickup truck, because it was more important to grow wealth than to show wealth. And that's something that psychologically most people can't get past. It's a very difficult part of financial education, is learning when to buy something, what to buy, and what not to buy. And then people who understand this, as you grow, you're more likely to have at least a more comfortable lifestyle. I'm not saying you're going to be, wealth beyond imagination, but being able to take your family on a yearly vacation, being able to send your kids to a better school, a better college, or get them in a trade program that they can learn a profession and they can start their own business. That's something that I think a lot of people, even those that push the trade schools, miss, is that if you start young and you get your license across multiple disciplines, as a plumber, as an electrician, as a carpenter, you could start your own business. And just imagine, you can say, hey, as a single person, I'm licensed in all these things. I have done all the licensing. I can do anything you want. I am a jack of all trades. And I have the license per my state to do it, my province, whatever, wherever you live. And doing this long term, as I said, allow you to achieve your financial goals. And one of those is going to be retirement. And not retire just for the sake of retirement, but retire securely, where you don't have to worry where your next dollars come from. You have enough income generating sources even after you retire that you're comfortable, that you can do whatever you want. You can take vacations around the world. You can go see your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. You can go see, if you're into plays or musicals or your favorite band, you can go see them, even in your later years. But that's all going to start with a great understanding of finances and financial education. So a little bit different from the 3 branches, as we talked about earlier, of finances, 3 principles of finance. The first is going to be the time value of money. Essentially, I'll use American terminology, a dollar today is going to be worth more than a dollar tomorrow, both due to the depreciating value of the dollar or any fiat currency, as well as its earning potential. Say, for example, if you invest well and you understand finances, investing in stocks at the right time, investing in dividend-paying stocks or growth stocks, and understanding that cycle of when it's best to invest in them, or investing in a local business, creating a business, and understanding what businesses are going to grow. So understanding that time value right now, that money you spend, it maybe you want to take that vacation, but with time value, if you really think about long term, it might be better to invest this money to create something now that over time will generate even more wealth. And that's one thing you really got to focus on with long-term financial education is patience. Patience. This single step to financial freedom is going to start with something. And that single step is going to get you to that desired goal. But you got to have the patience to get there. Another aspect is your risk and return. So obviously, just like with anything, it's a gamble. But just like with anything gambling, the higher risk, there's a higher potential return, but also higher potential of loss. So you have to figure out in your timeline of life, where are you? If you're in your later years, you're nearing retirement, you definitely don't want to be risking it all. It's not worth it. Even if unfortunately you didn't make the best financial decisions later in life, now's not the time to probably push it all in and go in on a single play or something like that. If you're younger, a certain portion of your overall portfolio can be for growth. Certain portion of it can be for steady income, like your dividend portfolio. And then a certain portion of it needs to be a much smaller portion of it for high risk investments, whatever that may be. But it needs to be a very small portion of it. And we'll kind of cover a little bit of that later, how much you need to be thinking about what portion of your investment needs to be in each of the categories. Diversification. So this will allow you to balance out your risk through over time, because different assets have different cycles. Your energy sector, say we're talking about the stock market, your energy sector is going to have its cycle. Your commodities are going to have their cycle. Your bank financial sectors are going to have their cycles, and understanding that. But diversifying across that way when one of them's going down, the other one's going up. And over time, believe it or not, over time, both will grow, and your assets, your overall finances will grow. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. We've all heard that phrase many times. Focus on that. Try to find different sectors. Do the research on what sectors that is, and then focus on learning approximately what allocation needs to go into each one. Next, we have liquidity. Liquidity is, in essence, how quickly you can get it to cash, to your fiat currency. So say, for example, you need to go buy food for the week. Okay. How quickly can you get whatever assets you have, how can you get them down to something you can take to the local grocery store or a mini mart and buy what you need to eat for you and your family? Now, if you own a home, obviously you can tell right quick, you're not going to sell that real quick. You're not going to turn that into cash in a couple of days. That could take months. If you have gold coins and stuff like that, there is a turnover for that. May not be immediately that day. Stocks, you can sell those. There's a higher liquidity, but how quickly can you get that cash from your stocks into your account so you can spend it? So understanding that, how quickly you could convert that. Now, Also, for if you're new to this, there's also a loss that's probably going to be taken when you sell your assets. Over time, as we were talking about, the time value of money is something that as you've invested it over time, these assets are going to grow. Well, when you sell these assets, especially those that have gained in value, you're going to be charged on your profits. So there's a certain loss that you're going to suffer. Is having this investment in, say, gold, for example. Well, if you paid attention to gold over the past few months, it has been a rocket ship. So if you had $1,000 in gold right now, it's tripled in price. So if you sell that now because you know you're going to need to pay for food next month or next week, there's $2,000 of what are called capital gains that you're going to have to pay taxes on. So that's kind of a loss. And same thing with certain stocks and other investments. So you kind of be wary of that loss. As you were talking about with the time value of money, one of the other categories is compounding interest. I believe it was Charlie Munger, and don't quote me on this, it's been a while since I've read, calls that the eighth wonder of the world. Compounding interest is what will make you rich over time. Proper investments, financial education, but that compounding interest. If you look back over the stock market, any investments over time, up and down, up and down, up and down. But over time, if your investments have been good and you've kept proper diversification, that compounding interest on your money is going to grow so much over time. Understanding that will put you in the next level for wealth creation and wealth growth. I'm hoping we go along. I'll try to see if I can't cover that a little bit more in depth later on. It's a little math heavy, but I want to try to get something with that later on. So now we go on to another topic. Financial mistakes. We've all made them. Bad investments. We buy a car that's cheap, but too cheap. There's that balance. So understanding how to avoid those problems. Learn from others. The greatest method of learning, to compress your learning, is to read finance books. There's decades and decades of knowledge in a book, and you can compress your time and learning by reading those books. But the first and foremost, especially for the American audience out there, is living beyond your means. As I talked about earlier, do you really need that brand new fancy 2025 car if you're just driving from point A to point B? If you're just doing X, Y, and Z, going to the grocery store or taking the kids, do you really need, now want? Yes, of course you do. But do you really need it? Probably not. Understand what your finances is. Understand your budget. And live within your means. In fact, live below your means. And later on, again, I want to try to cover that a little bit better of what I'm going to recommend. Again, not a financial advisor of any kind. Go seek professional help for that. I'm just kind of giving you my personal experience in life. Next would be saving for emergencies, or not saving for emergencies. I think the general rule is to have 3 to 6 months in savings. Yes, that's a lot. 3 to 6 months. So figuring out basically what you spend each month, 3 to 6 months of that liquid. Talking about liquidity earlier, having that liquid for you that you can access anytime for an emergency. Some want you to go even further out than that. Most of us here, I don't think that's realistic. 3 to 6 months, I think we could probably do. Takes time, takes discipline, but 3 to 6 months, I think you could do. Yes, you're going to have to give up stuff, 100%. That's just something, that's a fact of life with finances. But 1 to 5 years, I just don't see that being realistic. That's your millionaire, multimillionaire, billionaire class. So have an emergency savings that you do not touch. You absolutely do not touch. Okay. Now there's better ways to grow that over the time, but I might cover that later. Credit scores, ignoring your credit scores. I don't know if other countries have that or not. I'm not, again, financially savvy enough to say that, but here in America, your savings score, your credit score, sorry, can literally save you thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even hundreds of thousands, depending on what you're buying. So working on ways to get your credit score up as close to 800 or higher if you can. If you can get it to 800, you're pretty much golden. I think they say like 720 to 750 is really kind of where your minimum needs to be. You're A class right there. You're pretty much going to get the maximum savings. Anything above that is just saying that you are that much more trustworthy and creditworthy. Below that, your interest rates are going to start going through the roof. So you've got to find a way to correct your credit scores. And this isn't, I wouldn't say this is priority order. I would say if I would have a priority order right now, I'd say the savings for your 3 to 6 months of emergencies. That is what I would personally recommend, because that's what I try to do. The next, for those of us in the older side of life, we can look back on the younger guys and younger people and say, invest early, as early as possible. Have your parents start you an investment account. If you're in your teens or younger and watching this, have your parents start an investing account, start learning. You don't have to invest a lot. $10 here and there grows. Remember what we were talking about, compounding interest? You don't need to be looking at when I turn 20 or when I turn 30. You need to be looking at when I turn 60, when I turn 70. If you get to a certain point, there's some people that they just did such a good job. Yes, they are retiring 40 and 50 years old. But you got to really be savvy. And right now, that's not where we're at in this training. We're just invest in something. Find out something you're interested in, that you're willing to spend the time, the energy to learn, read about it. And then find companies that support that. Invest in that. And then budgeting. So there's kind of two schools of thought on budgeting. There is the budget every penny where it goes. It's not a bad thing, but that is mentally intensive, emotionally intensive, time intensive to track every single penny. Now, that's the way I grew up. So I'm not saying it's wrong, but understanding where every single penny goes and spending that time with your checkbook or your balance sheet, whatever you have, and tracking every single expense down to the minutia. Failing to budget at all is bad. Now, whether you go down to the minutia of every penny, or you just have an idea of the big picture, where your money is going. You have your rent or your mortgage, you have your car payment, you have a grocery bill, you have other, like your utilities, anything like that. It's a recurring interest. Even your subscriptions to different services. Keeping an eye on that. The better you budget, obviously, the better long-term you'll be. So find what works for you with budgeting, but have a budget and learn to stick well within it. Again, we'll cover that a little bit better later on. So next we'll do kind of basic steps to control your finances. Action steps, if you will. We talked about budgeting, so tracking your income and expenses, your debts and credits. What do you have coming in? What do you have going out? Finding a way to increase your income and decrease your expenses. Be as detailed as you can with that. Again, this kind of goes back to budgeting, but because you're looking at the overall, what's called the bottom line. So all your income in this column, what's your bottom line? All your expenses throughout the month, what's your bottom line there? Where's it going? Hopefully your income is greater than your expenses. That's what you want to focus on. Now, when you're creating your budget, and again, you're going to see probably dozens of different methodologies for budgeting, and even breaking down within that budget. The one I've kind of seen referenced is a 50-30-20 rule. 50% for needs. What do you absolutely need? Now, I've heard this number go up to 75%, but you want to try to get it down to 50%. So you need food every month. What kind of food? Okay, you don't need to go to Lone Star Steakhouse every night. No. If you want some steak, you can buy it. Fix it at the house. Might be cheaper, especially if you love steak. Go buy a grill. Do your own grilling on the back porch or wherever, local park if you can. Your rent or mortgage. You got to have a place to live. Clothing. Obviously, you have a job. You need to wear something to work unless you're a stripper. And even then, you probably need to wear something small to work, just to get to and from work. Figure out what you absolutely need. Transportation. Most people usually need transportation. Whether you're taking the bus, a taxi, you own your own car. Figure out what your absolute needs are. And try to aim for having that to be about 50% of your income. 30% is wants. I want the new car. I want the new computer. I want this, that, or the other. I personally would squeeze that down a little bit more than 30%. But as long as your needs are taken care of, your wants, okay, we can do some flexibility with that. Now, if your want is you want to retire early, then the next section, which is 20% towards your savings or paying off your debt, you may want to switch these two and have 30% toward savings and debt and 20% toward wants. Again, it really depends on you. And we can break these down even more within your savings, breaking that out into different types of investments. So kind of figuring out what you want to do with it. But 50% needs to be your absolute needs, to take care of yourself and your family. What do you absolutely need? Anything else beyond that, the other 50%, can be broken down depending on what your life goals are. As I said, do you want the brand new designer handbag? Or would it be better to think 10 years, 20 years down the road and take that money that you want to spend on a designer handbag and invest it in the company that produces these designer handbags? If they're that good of a company and the product is that good, your funds are going to grow a lot better. Same with buying a new car versus buying a jalopy. Next would be building that emergency fund, as I talked about. Your 3 to 6 months of emergency. That needs to happen. You need to have that. And yes, it's going to take time. And this is that 50, 30, 20. Your want, well, you need to want to have an emergency fund. So you need to be putting money away every week into that emergency fund until that's there. You need to live on my recommendation. Again, this is your life, your choices. I recommend that you put as much as you can into that emergency fund until you get to that 6-month window. 3 months, okay, you can slack off a little. But if you can live as tight of a budget as possible and get to that 6 months, hell, even a year, you're golden. And then just keep flexing that based on your living expenses. Reassess that, say once a quarter, even once a year. What do you need to live on for 3 to 6 months? Because that's going to change over time as you grow, as you and your family grow. I mean, having a 1-month-old has a certain amount of expenses. Having teenagers that have all the extracurricular activities, especially if they go to college, that takes a lot more funds. So be looking at that as an emergency fund, what you need to dig into. If things happen and you lose your job or you have a medical emergency, which you just can't pay for out of pocket, this is where those emergency funds come in. But you cannot touch those emergency funds until it's an emergency. And a designer handbag is not an emergency, nor is a new sports car. Managing your debt wisely would be the next topic. And this is where I would highly recommend you get a financial advisor. Sit down with them. It's worth the time, even if you have to pay a couple $100 for time. But there's enough YouTube videos out there that you can learn. It's out there. But learning how to manage that debt, paying off your higher interest credit cards, anything high interest, pay it off. There's different methodologies on how to do that. There's kind of like a snowball where you pay for the little debts first, and then you take whatever you used to pay. Once that debt's paid off, that gets bigger, so you pay off the next highest debt, and then the next highest, and the next highest, until all your debts are paid off. Well, there's another policy which kind of states pay off the highest interest rate first, whatever credit card that is, and then once you've paid that high interest rate off, take the next highest, and then the next highest, and the next highest, and you just roll that until your debt's paid for. But again, this is where you need to figure out that want column and your savings and your debt that you're paying off, merging those two. If you can live off that 50% and take the other 50% and focus that on paying off your debt, you're going to be golden as long as you don't get back in debt. That's hard. I understand. There's certain wants and needs that happen that you can't get away from. And then finally, topic number 5 would be investing. That's over the long enough horizon. That's going to be your greatest source of wealth creation. But having that financial education to know what to invest in, when to invest. Popular phrase is it's time in the market and not timing the market. So over time, learning how the stock market moves. Learning maybe when to invest, when not to invest. But if you don't have the time for that, again, financial advisor, investment advisor, give them your money and say, I'm at this point in my life and I don't plan on retiring till XYZ. And there are funds out there that they can set up. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but they're investment funds that if you're 20 years old, and you plan on retiring at 60, okay, well, it automatically adjusts over time. So at the beginning, it's a lot more aggressive. If you're 20, it's a lot more aggressive because you've got time to make it up. But if you're 40, it's going to squeeze it just a bit. You've still got, 20 years of time to make up any losses. But then you get to 50 and then 55 and then So understanding it's going to depend on your time horizon. So if you've got the time and energy to learn it yourself, more power to you. But if you don't, find a financial advisor, an investment advisor, and just over time, weekly, monthly, part of your investments, that 20% we talked about earlier, if you want to increase it to 30, like I try to do myself, just have them invest it for you. It's easier, it's long-term, and probably get you a better diversification anyway than if you try to do it yourself. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover for today. As I said, I don't want to get too in-depth too quickly. We'll cover more as we go, of course. I just wanted to give you kind of that introduction to finance, that 101. Yeah, I can't think of anything else at this level that I want to delve into. As I said, this is going to be about 20 topics overall. So this is topic 1 of 20. If you have any recommendations or suggestions, put them in the comments, of course. But I've kind of done a lot of research and time and kind of figured out how I want to break it out. So hopefully you enjoy. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.